Members of the House, I welcome you to what is the 16th Ordinary Meeting of the 177th Session of the Literary and Scientific Society. Willkommen, bienvenue, welcome. Or should I say, Céad Míle Fáilte, Slamat the Chung, and Fair Faye. Now, what do these all have in common? Those are a handful of languages that our members speak at this society. And what do all of those members have in common? They call the Lerific their home. And that is because our society is not only fun and vibrant, but incredibly active. Just this Monday, we met in the PFC for some competitive debate training with 2 rooms of very high quality sparring sessions in preparation for the 4 teams and 4 judges which we were sending down to Dublin to compete in the Trinity IV, and we wish them the best of luck. And this is not only in preparation for the Trinity IV, but also our own IV that we have coming up that we've brought back, which we're incredibly excited, and we'll hear more from Mr. External on that. Then on Tuesday, we found ourselves in the Canada room, where we had a great debate and collaboration with our friends from Lawyers Without Borders. And finally, tonight, you find yourselves here in the McMorty Hall for what is about to be an excellent debate taking place. I know you probably have many questions about the debate, or about the society, or about me. Well, my friends, you're in luck, because that brings us on to our President's questions. This is your chance, as members of the House, to ask me any question you can come up with. But of course, with the caveats, no questions of my politics, and no questions about my sex life, or lack thereof. So, do we have any President's questions for tonight? And of course, yes, Mr. Secretary is signalling to state your name for the minutes. Do we have one over here? Yes, Kwame.
So, how much do you love marmalade?
How much do I love marmalade? Not as much as Paddington. I think jam is clear. Strawberry jam over marmalade for me. Any other President's questions? Yes, Calvin?
What about Nutella, sir?
Yeah, I prefer Nutella. If I'm going to make a ranking of those 3, I'm going to say Nutella first, then strawberry jam, and then marmalade. Yes, Luca.
Which popular condiment spread, like Nutella, etc., if it was a person, would be in the X-Men files?
I think we'll skip that one. Any other President's questions? Yes, EJ?
Opinions on Marmite?
No. Don't like it. Yeah, not a fan of Marmite, I'm afraid. Any other President's questions? Yes, Laura?
What's your sleep paralysis, Stephen?
Me dressed as Collie Winkleman's my sleep paralysis, Stephen, as it is for many of you. I know. Yes, Leon?
What did you have for breakfast?
Oh, so for breakfast this morning, because this is kind of a linguistic debate, I was thinking about the linguistics of cuisine. So, eggs, they're pretty straightforward. Poached eggs, you poach. Fried eggs, you fry. Scrambled eggs, you scramble. Unfortunately, the same thing didn't apply when I tried to bake bacon or cook cookies. But, I thought I had that cracked. However, that's not what I had for breakfast. I did buy then, I went back to square one and bought some French eggs. And I thought, I'd try all these different methods to cook the eggs. But it turned out I only had the stomach for one. Or in other words, 1 egg was enough. Any other President's questions? Yes?
As well, I'm back for the minutes. How many meals did Bethany cook for you this week?
I don't think Bethany cooked any meals for me this week. There you go. However, I did take the bin out. And, I fought with the gate to take the bin out in really harsh weather and terrain. So, it just proves that I am an asset to my flatmates. Or maybe they take out the ET part of that word when describing me. But anyway, we'll go on to another President's question. Yes, Luke?
There was real this week in the Epstein files that Bill Gates banned Jeffrey Epstein from Xbox Live for falling out. So why would you get banned from Xbox Live?
I think too many bad puns down the mic when you're trying to you tell me your location in Call of Duty or something, and I'm just going, what about eggs? I talk about eggs boxes from my last joke rather than Xboxes. Any other President's questions? Yes, Jonathan?
If every animal was the same size, which animal would win in a fight?
Oh, that's an interesting. Well, ants are very strong, so they can already lift well over their own body weight. So I think if you had an ant on the same playing field as the rest of the animals, I would back the ant to win. Any other president's questions? Yes, Colin.
Do you dream at night, and if so, what was your last dream?
I do dream at night. In fact, everyone dreams at night. You just don't remember, what you dream all the time. What was my last dream? I don't know, but I can tell you that most of the dreams I have in my house are interrupted with Daniel! From the culprit over here, and for 3 reasons. The first reason is because there's a spider in the house. The second reason is because I need to bring down my washing basket. That's besides the point. And the third reason, which I find the most baffling, is in a house full of girls, for some reason, I'm entrusted with the best fashion sense advice. Now, you've seen some of the things I've worn before. I'm just as confused as you are, but yes, those are the 3 things that interrupt my dreams. Any other president's questions? Going once? Going twice? Yes, James.
Mr. President, can you let our new incomers know that there's seats down the back?
Yes, there is seats down the back, and can I just say how glad I am to see a full McMurdy Hall tonight. Any other president's questions? Yes?
Do you play any instruments?
I play 2 instruments. There's the basic one and the quirky one. So I play the piano, and then I also play the trombone. There you go. Although it is a bit unfortunate, the name of the musicians who play those instruments. I picked a pianist and a tromboner, but that's besides the point. We'll move on. Anything other? Yes, Hugh.
Huge job for this. If you could reorganise the design liturgical layout into one of 3 organisations, either the Chinese classroom style, or the British Westminster, or the semicircular model, which one would you prefer?
Oh well, this will be the most nerdy answer ever, but I'd go for the semicircular model, of course. Nice curve around. We're all friends in here. Any other president's questions? Yes, Mark.
On the topic of instruments, what instrument would you like to fucking destroy?
Oh, that's a good fight. What instrument would I like to destroy? Nirvana always seem like they're having great fun whenever they destroy their instruments at the end, and particularly the electric guitar. So I would destroy the electric guitar or the French horn, but that's more for a political statement. Any other president's questions? It's Kwame.
Okay, so when you watch anime, subs or subs?
Oh, I'm gonna go subs because it's the thing with westerns too. When they're speaking, I can literally see their mouth moving, and when it doesn't match up with the words, it really, it just doesn't look right. So subs all the way. Although I'm a very slow reader, so it means I'll have to keep hitting the back 10 seconds button on Netflix. Any other? Yes, Conan.
On the topic of languages, would you rather speak every language in the world or be able to speak the animals?
Oh. I think if I was able to speak to animals, it'd become really depressing quite quickly. When I'm sitting just out of McDonald's, and then next thing, driving back home, and you see cows in the fields going, that's Barry, who's got Barry in this app? So probably, I'd rather speak every language in the world. I think that'd be pretty cool. As a linguist yourself, I'm sure you'd probably agree. Yes?
I was going to say, on the topic of instruments and things that are all the same size, if every instrument was the same size, which one do you think would be like the loudest?
Oh.
Like, all of them are the same size, they've got like amps and stuff.
I think that specifically the Vuvuzela from the 2010 World Cup, because that was, the loudest thing ever for that. Any other presents? Yes, Luke.
Are you aware of the tragedy of Dark Plague is the one?
Would you care to elaborate?
It's a tragic story. You could even.
Okay, interesting. We'll have a chat about that in that break then, I suppose. Any other presents, questions? Was there one back here? In that case, we will move on to our private members' business. This is your chance as members of the House to get others' opinions on anything you've seen quite interestingly in the news recently, or something that's of a particular interest to you. So, do you have any private members' business? Yes, James.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to put a motion before the House tonight expressing the Society's condolences on the death of Joe Mulholland. He was the founder of the McGill Summer School in County Donegal and former Managing Director of RTE, as well as the editor of the Current Affairs show. Given his lifelong pursuit of fostering public debate and using the McGill Summer School to bring journalists, academics, politicians, students and everyone together for frank conversation and discussion about politics, I thought it would be fitting for the Letterific to express our official condolences to his family on his passing.
Yes, do we have a seconder for that? Ella?
I'll second
Yep, so all those who would like to send their condolences for this defender of free speech, which we have a lot in common with, Letterific, please raise your hands now. I believe that is unanimous. Yes, that is passed. Do we have any other pieces of private members' business in the House tonight? Yes, Conleth.
From my hand up all the time. No, it's in 2 days ago, I think it was Tuesday morning, they passed a law, well, they're trying to pass a law in Spain as well as they've done in Australia where they're banning social media for under 16s. I'm just curious to see anybody's thoughts on that, please have any.
Yes, this is quite a popular one that came up. Do we have any opinions on that? Yes, Kwame?
Honestly, I see it makes sense. My brother is was roughly 16 a couple of years ago, and kids that age don't really have much common sense. So yeah, I think it's a good idea, but enforcing it, the problem is the parents I think the parents should be the ones enforcing it. But I mean, I don't see how the government's going to do it when people can get around it.
Thank you. Ash?
I think aside from the fact that the social media ban probably is quite relevant for young people and probably would be better, I think also though governments should focus more on video games, specifically like games like Roblox and considering Jeffrey Epstein and Xbox. Like most of the time, like children are really most of the time they're more exposed in like video game contexts rather than on social media where they're more consuming content. But it's really in like video games like Roblox or when they're meeting people in Xbox Live lobbies, that's mostly when they're targeted by the predators, and I think there needs to be a bigger push for governments to crack down on that, as well as social media.
Thank you. Anyone else on this? Yes?
Yeah, I agree with all that, but also I always kind of go side to side because while I do believe in some ways that the government does have some expectations to protect its citizens, especially its most vulnerable, it kind of can't I do believe someone's going to be at the cost of being a nanny state, but we do know that social media has had a really terrible impact on development, and I would say even the generation kind of after us, I would say like their interpersonal skills are absolutely horrible. Their test scores are down, things like that. That's statistically evidence, and a lot of that has to do with video games, social media. So in some ways I do agree with it, even though I don't know if the full ban is the way to handle it. I think parents just actually need to parent their children and not give them iPads and things like that.
Thank you. Veronica?
I think with the ban on social media, how are we going to, how governments then enforce this ban and to ensure, essentially punishing parents for raising your kid in certain ways? Because, yeah, you say, parents shouldn't give their kids iPads, but some parents do because, they're working on some jobs where, there's just other means besides that. But that's just my opinion.
Thank you. Right?
Going back to the, what this girl was saying, my little sister, she's 6'7" now, but why are you laughing? Oh, I get it. It goes right over my head. But anyways, it's interesting that you bring up the iPad issue because actually she goes to public school and the school actually gives her a tablet. The school actually gives her a laptop to take home, plus a tablet for inside of the classroom. Plus, she's got a Switch for some reason. I don't know why, but I think it's not. She's a little bee. But anyways, that's what it is.
Thank you. Hugh?
Ollie and I were having a conversation about this a few weeks back, and we were talking about how there should be a soft lock within all new produced or new sold phones in the United Kingdom. So, for example, in South Korea, they have it as a legally mandated thing that even when your phone's on silent, it still makes a camera shutter sound. So in the UK, what we should have is automatically when you buy a phone in the UK, it's soft locked to a under 16s mode, and you put in your national insurance number, for example, to unlock it to a full normal mode. And I think that's the easiest way to enforce it, really.
Thank you. Oh, hands also up in the corner. Yes, Rosa?
Like the national insurance number to unlock it.
Something else or a passport number.
Yeah, well, I think that there's like some issues with your security then if it's like maybe you buy it from a dodgy supplier, or then that like phone company or the software company or whoever created the phone has your personal details in that way, which a lot of the time they do anyways, but I think that giving them more avenues to access that is probably not the route I would take. And then furthermore, like as someone from the Republic, I wouldn't have a national insurance number coming in here. I'd have to like apply for it, and then I'd have barriers to buying a phone if I needed to.
Thank you. Jonathan?
I think, as ever, the governments broadly like to try and target the symptoms and not target the causes. I think banning social media for under 16s is broadly good, but what we really should be looking into on a societal level is much stricter regulation around social media in its entirety and what social media is and can do and is allowed to do before we go, oh, let's just ban under 16s and act like there aren't a myriad of other problems that have just gone completely unaddressed.
Thank you. Elliot?
I would suggest a different solution to the national insurance one. I think during the lifetime of the device, usually it's parents buying or having a contract for a child to get a phone for under 16s. I think, I don't know, I never had the money to buy myself a phone as under 16. I don't know if that was different for any of you. It was always something that was needed to be my parents. So I'd say that it's a mandatory update for iOS and Android that all phones and devices sold in the UK have an enableable under 16s mode, or are sold as under 16s phones and devices, which just have this turned on. And then as an adult, you specifically buy a device that doesn't have this under 16 modes enabled, and you never turn it on. Once you turn it on, it's difficult to turn it on. And then what happens is, I think it could apply to the OSA and also social media. That device, before it accesses any website, sorry, maybe slightly technical, sends a handshake to that website or social media application. If that social media application returns that handshake with a specific piece of code and says this is an under 16 safe website, then the device is allowed to access it. If it doesn't, the device isn't allowed to access it. And I like that solution for a couple of reasons. One, there doesn't need to be any personal information submitted. But two, websites that aren't meant to be accessed by under 16s don't actually have to do anything. They can just not return that handshake, and then the authentication will fail, and then the device won't be able to access that. Obviously, that's a kind of very loose technical plan. I have no idea how
Yes, thank you. We'll take one last point on this. Yes?
Yeah, I broadly agree with the idea that they're treating the symptoms rather than the actual cause of the issue. And I think also that something that people aren't addressing is that some of the websites that are labeled as not being appropriate for under 16s for whatever reason, it's not necessarily good that under 16s shouldn't be able to access them. Like, I believe there was a legal challenge against the UK government for blocking Wikipedia for without uploading your ID or under the Online Safety Act, which is obviously not good because it creates a situation in which you kind of you're trying to, children aren't able to access information, and just because, I mean, obviously in general, just because you're under 16, it doesn't mean that you should have, obviously websites that have pornography and things like that are different, but it doesn't, a lot of these websites, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be able to access them, because especially ones that provide information, I mean, at that point you're basically just telling children okay, well, you have a random role that if your parents are good and provide you that information, then you'll get to know it, but if you don't, then sorry, you can't even look up Wikipedia because it has some websites some articles which could be considered inappropriate. I think it's just, you have to consider all sides of the issue here. You can't just think this is good, you're not going to do it in all situations, or you're going to really bad in all situations. I think it's more complicated than a lot of people give it credit for.
Louise, we have one last piece of private members' business. Yes?
Just relating to the under 16 mode not having to link the ID or any personal data, then how would you go about only allowing over 18s to enable the under 15
Thank you. Yes, Jack?
I was just going to say, I don't know if people are aware, but 2 weeks ago the House of Lords did approve an amendment to ban social media for under 16s as an amendment to the Children's Wellbeing in Schools Act, so it will come into law in the UK. I don't know if it applies to Northern Ireland specifically, but the point that was made over there about adult age gating checks being made compulsory was the main point of contention, but I'm pretty sure it was like 260 votes to 150 against, so it is set to be law in the UK to ban it for under 16s.
Thank you. Do we have another piece of private members' business? Yes, Calvin?
It has now been well over a month since the finale of Stranger Things, so I think we're well out of the spoiler zone. Does the House have any opinions they'd like to share, and especially so if they've seen the behind-the-scenes documentary, which made the Duffer Brothers look dumb, to say the least.
Anyone on Stranger Things? Yes, Rosa?
There are two options in my mind. It was either written by ChatGPT because they gave up in the last season, or it was written by, I forget which brother's wife, and then when she divorced him, it was all over because that season is not the Stranger Things that we knew, even if it wasn't perfect. In my mind, it's not the same level. Maybe I'm just delusional, guys.
Anyone else on the Stranger Things finale? Yes, Beth?
Not to be a hater, but I think this is expected because I've liked every season less and less as the time has come out. Season 1, fantastic. Season 2, good, great. Season 3, good. But it was also like 10 years ago when I watched it, so like I wouldn't remember much of it. But I think it's expected outcome for how big it got, how popular it was, and how many characters it was. Oh my lord, why does it have to be relevant now?
Thank you. Well, here's one I'll throw out. Has anyone seen the recent photos from the Beatles biopics? And do we have any thoughts on that? Yes, Luke, you're a fellow Beatles fan.
Yeah, of course. Well, I was actually going to bring that up as well for my better private members business. Now, I think we need to be careful when it comes to the Beatles biopics. They're obviously not going to look anything like them. Austin Butler doesn't look anything like Elvis, but he's certainly trying to sound like him. And Tony Shalhoub didn't look anything really like Bob Dylan. So I think just looking like the Beatles, it's not going to be any good. Otherwise, Michael will get an impersonator or something like that. I think these are good actors, and just say the makeup and hairstyle and do the trick. It's just about telling the actual good story. But I will say one thing as well as add on to it, which is that most Beatles stories up to this stage have just been John and Paul getting into an argument, George and Ringo are just in the background, who cares about them? And the Beatles all falls apart because Yoko Sano now, as Paul McCartney would say. So I think it's good we're going to have one individual movie that focuses on all our perspectives. And also I think the host can agree we're all most excited for the
Thank you. Any other points on that? Yes, EJ?
I was just disturbed by Barry Keoghan's hairstyle. That was fun.
Oh,
boy. Sorry, but that was like genuinely that disturbing. I got that photo on my feed, I turned off my phone and I went back to bed. It's haunted my nightmares ever since. No man with that face shape or face in general should ever have hair like that.
Perhaps that's my second sleep paralysis, even. Yeah. Anyone else? Yes, Owen?
I just think people just need to stop complaining, to be honest, and just try and enjoy 4 films. Like, what other band would get like a quad trilogy of films? So just enjoy the ride.
Yeah. Kwame?
Honestly, I think Lynam they got it pretty good. It looks legit to me. That's just my opinion.
I'll agree with you on Lennon and Paul. However, I know Dave Grohl was obviously part of many bands, the Foo Fighters and Nirvana. I was not aware he was part of the Beatles until I seen that image of George. Yes?
Yes, I'm actually pretty excited. I know the Beatles, but also I just want to say the slander of George Harrison in this house has happened so many times, and as he's my favorite Beatle, I will not take that. So please, the George Harrison lovers, please come out because he's been slandered in this hall too many times.
Thank you. I'm sure, as George would say though, I'm sure the slander will pass. Do we have, yes, Beth?
I think the issue is that just some actors are too famous for their own good. I watched Hamlet recently, and all I could think of was like, wow, Paul Mescal's really eating it up. Like, Paul Mescal did that to you. Same with Timothy Chalamet. Got brought up, but like any Timothy Chalamet movie I watch, I'm like, wow, Timothy Chalamet is really good in this. But like, I'm like, oh, it's Timothy Chalamet. Why is he doing that to you? But like some actors, you just can't get into the fact that they're a character anymore, and I think this Beatles movie kind of shows that. Because I'm looking at like Stranger Things guy, and I'm like, wow, anyone's really eating it up in this Beatles movie. So I think, yeah.
We'll take 4 more. The Fab 4 questions. Yes?
I disagree because remember that Ray Charles movie with
Jenny Fox.
yeah, I mean that was legit. Like he literally dissolved into the role, and Jimmy Fox was like a huge star before. So I don't know. I think that even if the actor is famous, it can still be good, like a good representation.
Thank you, Kwame. Yes, James?
James Dorsch for the minutes. Does the House have any thoughts on Queen's removing the bust with George Mitchell?
No, that's not to do with the Beatles. Yes, right.
Yes, I request that we have a change topic.
Well, we're still on the Beatles, so we'll take those last 2 points that we had there, Leon.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it looked like your man was playing John Lennon there. I wasn't wearing my glasses when I looked at it first, so I'm a bit blind. And it kind of looked like Rami Malek was playing him for a second. I don't know. Maybe just make it all the biopics are played by Rami Malek.
Interesting. And do we have one final point on Beatles? Yes, Ella?
I think just to Beth's point about the fact that they're like maybe people are getting too famous. I do think maybe we just have too many biopics because I do think that like you're getting to a point now where people are like, well, just look identical to Michael Jackson. Well, actually, Michael Jackson does look identical to Michael Jackson. But then you're going to the point where are we going to AI generate? Are we going to make you put so much makeup on? Then is it even acting then more than an impersonation act? Like I do think maybe we're just oversaturated in biopics, and also like Paul Mescal could play Paul McCartney without looking identical to Paul McCartney. You know, like I do think it's these films should be about their acting performances, and we're looking for impersonations. Maybe we should just go to impersonators.
Thank you. And with that, we will close our private members' business. I'm surprised no food pieces of private members' business were brought up, but perhaps we've exhausted all of those. So now I would like to invite Mr. Secretary to read the minutes from last week's debate, which was This House Believes Capitalism has failed the West. Mr. Secretary.
On January 29th, 2026, the Queen's University Belfast Literary and Scientific Society convened for the 15th ordinary meeting of the 177th session to debate the motion, This House Believes Capitalism has failed the West. President's questions, so we said if you could only go by 3 names, what would it be? Daniel replied, Daniel, Alexander and Emma. Luke Collins said, what is an appropriate punishment for people who put milk before cereal? You said an old-style French execution. Somebody said it's okay to microwave tea rice. You then guided them to the executioner. Massey said, what did you have for breakfast? Daniel said he made bread in his kitchen, and his kitchen alone, nobody else's kitchen, only Daniel's kitchen. Spratt said, for those who break literary rules, can we milkboard them? Daniel said, yes, we can. That's being installed next week. Turish questioned Matthew Spratt wearing no socks with his shoes. Daniel said, we condemn him. Whether that's execution or milkboarding, we don't know yet. Matthew Spratt then replied that, why was James looking at my feet? Daniel, I don't actually think Daniel said this. This may have been someone else, but he said he's a pervert and I condemn him. So, that was Spratt. Elliot said, what is your shaving method? Daniel said, warm water and a razor. Luke Collins said, what is the most newsworthy thing you've done this week? You said, ate spinach and killed a spider. Don't worry, I'm not just a pretty face. Then we moved on to private members' business. There was the whole thing on tea and nothing else of note was said. Votes on prior opinion, we had 33 for the proposition, 28 for the opposition, and 12 abstentions, meaning that the proposition carried and the motion passed. Then we moved on to the main debate. First on the proposition, we heard from Hugh Child. Friends, colleagues, Elliot, he began. Disparity this day is larger than it was in revolutionary France. 1 in 5 children are going without a meal once per day. Elliot, he said, will say that capitalism is the best product and we should vote for it. Elliot, looking shocked at the words which had just been forced down his throat by Hugh, offered a POI which was quickly rejected. Capitalism helped grow the West, but now it's ensuring its demise, he said. First on the opposition, we heard from Ollie. Ollie invited us to imagine feudalist Europe. You're slaving away and breaking your back for Elliot's ancestors, he said. All is to live in the mud hut owned by the Dickey family. They can milkboard you whenever they want, just for funsies. Since then, capitalism has given you literacy and growth and rights. Elliot can no longer hurt you, it's okay. You're safe, you're in the arms of Daniel the dashing Devaney. Capitalism is far from perfect, but fundamentally it has provided us a golden age for the West. Second on the proposition, we heard from James Tourish. He began by speaking in a foreign language, which I didn't understand. He then quickly switched to English, thankfully. Fundamentally, capitalism has failed because success is not measured in material wealth, he said. We are enthroning appetite over reason, he said. Capitalism exists to serve people's wants, not needs. He's not advocating for a nanny state system, he said, although during his speech a particular quote did come to mind. This was a quote from a literary favourite and indeed one of James's heroes, the Tory and self-styled fire expert, Jacob Rees-Mogg, who said, "I'm all for the nanny but not the nanny state," a notion which Jonathan Massey would later allude to. When profit becomes a measure of success, James said, then productivity is the only measure of human advancement. Second, in the opposition, we heard from Nat, who said all systems come with chaos. The real question is, does this mean that capitalism no longer serves Western interests? Democracy creates polarisation, but we view it as good. Free speech creates polarisation, but we view it as good. I was a bit concerned that we were sort of going into an impending advocation for a communist state, inspired by Daniel Devaney's Kitchen, which meant I had to pay a bit closer attention. He said, inflation happens because of government spending and decisions. Order is never free and stability is never painless. Sacrifice did not invalidate the system, he said. Capitalism was designed to generate growth, not stagnation. Third on the proposition, we heard from Maeve, who said rising prices mean people have to choose cheaper, lower quality food. All these big companies care only for profits and not food safety or health. Companies make more money selling cheap items with high profit margins. For example, when was the last time you saw a punnet of strawberries advertised? Little Jimmy, Tim, John, and many of the small children were mentioned in various capacities, but I failed to keep up with the rhetoric, and I was also quite hungry. Third in the opposition, we heard from Ray Thiem, who started by saying, it's funny that they argue against capitalism while reaping the rewards. I was then brutally targeted twice, for no apparent reason. Blame the people responsible for the system, she said. Ray then demonstrated that reputation ruled the waves by relentlessly batting away the onslaught of POIs, but followed by Jonathan Massey. Continuing on, she talked about the financial measures put in place by other countries to prevent economic collapse and how the middle class controls 70% of the country's assets. To conclude, Ray said that her little sister should not be forced to give up her 9 Labubu's with customisable K-pop demon hunter clothes. I stopped there. Fourth on the proposition, we heard from Jonathan Massey. Jonathan stood up and claimed baseless ad hominem attacks. The natural state of capitalism is not one of something. Wealth is from profit. Listening to techno-feudalism, Massey said that post-2008 investment has not been put into predictive capacity, it's going into infrastructure. Matthew's Spratt then surgically dismantled Massey by questioning the wisdom of taking economic advice from a Greek finance minister. Companies don't exploit labour anymore. Then he said, quoting Jessica J, British economist, it's not about the money. If you forget the upkeep of the machine stops. And finally, fourth in the opposition, we heard from Elliot Dickey. Elliot stood up, gleaming in his white South African self, and shrugging off the suggestion that his family engaged in neo-feudalism. On his way to the debate, he was clubbed to death by the proposition he began. He saw the evil spirit of Ronald Reagan in that dark alley. Elliot then demonstrated his financial affinity by claiming he'd uploaded his entire paycheck to Polymarket in the hopes that 2026 would be the year of the return of Jesus. He then continued by using a rather confusing analogy involving Kremlin, a copper-plated Hugh Child, and a diamond-encrusted Jonathan Massey, all coordinating a female assault on the Venezuelan oil reserves. When Lavery's closes tonight, will we go home, he said. No, we will pass out in the streets after Kremlin like a true literificon. To end, he said, Kremlin is as gay as Ulster is a university. The speech then got awfully serious, which didn't seem like your style, so I stopped. Question for the proposition, we heard from Kwame, Jonathan and Elliot. For the opposition, we heard from Jack, Elliot and Jonathan. Abstaining, we heard from Matthew, Hugh and Elliot. And the vote on speakerability had 33 votes for the proposition, 29 votes for the opposition and 12 abstentions, meaning the proposition carried and the motion passed. Can I take the minutes as read?
Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for those minutes. And now, before we get to the reason we're all here for what will be a very exciting debate, I'd first like to go over the rules and then conduct the vote on prior opinion. So, the rules. Speakers will take it in turns, proposition and opposition, to come up to the podium and deliver 7-minute speeches. The first minute of your speech and the last minute of your speech is protected time, which means for those 5 minutes in between, you have unprotected time. This is indicated by a bell, Madam Vice President. Thank you very much. During these 5 minutes, you're open to POIs. These are a chance for your adversaries on the other side of the table or the members of the House to challenge one of your points in real time. To offer a POI, I suggest you raise your hand and shout on that point of information, or POI. It is then to the discretion of the speaker as to whether they accept it or decline it. Please keep your POIs to a maximum of 15 seconds, otherwise I may be forced to use my gavel. And please keep 15 seconds in between each POI to allow the speaker to get through their speech. We also have a rule, which has been broken twice tonight already before the debate's even started, on swearing. Madam Vice President.
Yes, so if you swear at all during the debate, when asking questions or in your speech, you owe the House a bottle of port. We have 3 outstanding port fines now: Luke Coyle, Mark Emmo, and Eugene. Yeah.
From before?
Yeah.
I swore before.
Yeah.
When was that?
When you were doing private language criticism?
Today. Oh, today.
Today.
I thought it was
No, today. We'll waive your port fine right now. Well, you're still in House bottle of port. Usually you're not allowed to speak, but you're obviously speaking. So.
Yes, Mark, you're still speaking. Don't worry, my friend. But yes, thank you very much for that, Madam Vice President. I'd just like to reveal to the House as well that Luke swore on Tuesday, and the reason Luke swore was because he was impassioned about whether Jaffa cakes were cakes or biscuits, which I loved, Luke. But anyway, we shall now conduct our vote on prior opinion. So this is just your opinion walking into tonight's debate. To remind you of the motion, it is this House would reinstate the QUB Irish language signage. So, can I have all those who would like to vote for the proposition and agree with that motion to raise their hands now, please?
Burn the lines down, Jack.
Yes, thank you. And can I have all those who disagree with the motion and would like to vote for the opposition on the vote? Prior opinions, raise their hands. Is that 12? Yes, thank you. And finally, can I have all those who'd like to abstain on the motion to raise your hands now, please? 5? Yes. Mr. Secretary, can I have the results from the vote of prior opinion, please?
I think the opposition on that one. 48 votes for the proposition, 12 votes for the opposition and 5 abstentions, meaning that the proposition carries and the motion passes.
For that, and to begin our debate tonight, I would like to invite to open the case for the proposition, Conleth, to the podium, please.
Did Roger, tá mé fear buich as an jazz shaw lord before the hour tá mé an ladra free. It seems unusual to suggest that a university has regressed, but that's exactly what's going on here in Queen's. Not only has bilingual signage was taken down in 1987, it's been repeatedly kept down for almost 30 years since. It's important that this debate isn't about whether Queen's should adopt something entirely new, but whether they are ready to recommit to a policy of equality that decades after having abandoned it. Irish language signs are incompatible with a neutral working environment, said the Borough Employment Commission in their review. With this idea that Queen's is neutral, it's a neutral space, it is a fallacy. Neutral spaces require ignoring key markers of identity and culture. They encourage people to come together, certainly, but only if they do not acknowledge what makes them different. Queen's is a shared space, instead an important distinction evident through its promotion of global cultures and location in a post-conflict, still divided city. A shared space doesn't ignore symbols, but encourages them to exist openly, side by side. They may be conflicting, challenging, and even perceived as offensive to certain groups, but we're in a high-ranked university, not a creche. So why then do the powers that be draw the line at the native indigenous language of the land on which we're all sitting right now? An argument made at the time and ever since is that other languages like Polish and Lithuanian are spoken in this city more than Irish, so why don't they deserve it? Without hesitation, I celebrate this diversity and hope that, like London and Dublin before us, Belfast continues to attract and nurture more languages and cultures. Yet the reason that Gaelic is so low on the list, in fact the reason we're not all speaking it here right now, is fundamentally the result of one thing, colonialism. Language binds people together, it connects them to their land, history, mythology, each other.
On that point,
If you're a proponent against colonialism, why would you not be in favour of reinstating Ulster Scots, which was also oppressed?
I'll come to that if you let me, sir. Perfect. Language binds people together. It connects them to their land, their history, mythology, each other. When they lose it then, the people forget the deep, unconscious, collective conviction of who they are. In other words, an identity crisis, leading to insecurity, then fear, then conflict. In an ever-growing number of places around the world, the indigenous language has been wiped out entirely. Hushpupuna in Mississippi, Mulgoa in Sydney, and Cuba in the Caribbean are all places whose names are foreign in meaning to those who live there. Belfast is not the same as those places, from which this university derives its name. Translated as mouth of the sandbank, Belfast is alive and well, yet from taking a walk around this campus, you'd be forgiven for thinking that the word Belfast was made up from scratch, and not a deliberately anglicised construction. It may be claimed then that the language is being politicised. I absolutely agree. But given its historic marginalisation, such as being illegal to speak in court for almost 300 years until 11 months ago, or not being facilitated at all,
It would not be important to clarify that Irish wasn't actually singled out in terms of being outlawed in the courts. It was actually more specifically directed at French. That's not maybe.
Are we having a discussion about French? And it wasn't facilitated in the regional parliament until 2023. I'm unconvinced that this was the fault of politicians or advocates. It's sort of like arguing that Catholicism was politicised during the penal laws, or that working class wages were politicised during the general strike in Britain. Yeah, they were, and it was right. Represented here tonight are the QUB young unionists who have previously implied that this signage should come at the expense of period products and bathrooms on campus. What a horribly disingenuous position. No person in this room should accept that a basic human right in a world-leading, wealthy, third-level institution should come at the expense of anything else, least of all some signs. On other occasions, and in contradiction, they have argued that their opposition is actually over the lack of representation for Ulster Scots. I've no issue with Ulster Scots. In fact, I've already said I believe we are enriched by the diversity of our traditions. At the same time, I accept no responsibility for having to promote it. Instead of opposing this motion, advocates of Ulster Scots should see the strengthening of Irish as fundamental in expanding their own recognition. Based on our experience of near extinction, it's a loss that they don't.
On that point,
yep.
A lot of persecution of Ulster Scots is often done by Republican communities who use it as claim that it's a political tool to counter Irish.
It's interesting that the only time that I'm, and someone who's very involved in language, only really sees Ulster Scots mentioned is in this context. I think that's unfortunate. Absolutely condemn anyone who would use it in that way. But I do think Irish and Ulster Scots are in very different positions, and I think you can argue that. Sorry, back to where I was. 2 seconds. On the issue of cost, however, I doubt we'll hear any reference tonight of the money involved with replacing the original Irish language signage in 1997. If a policy of bilingualism had been adopted before the new Student Union was built a few years ago, would those who are angry about the expense of replacing current signage instead be content? Somehow I doubt it, because cost is not the real issue. So what is? Knocknagonie in Belfast comes from the Irish Gruch Nagoniani, meaning the hill of the rabbits. How many people do you think shopping at Tesco, now built on that hill, understand that's what it means? Do the locals in Lisnagarowach or Lisburn know that it means the fort of the gamblers, where people will come to bet in the seclusion of the forest? Magherfell, Dungannon, the Shankill Road, in fact at least 90% of place names in these 6 counties are derived from Irish and have meanings as interesting and as diverse as those I've already mentioned. When you start looking, it's impossible to escape the Irish language, whether you like it or not. This all leads to one answer: education by exposure in small, non-intrusive ways like bilingual signs, until its presence becomes a normality. Linda Irvine, a proud unionist, working-class Protestant woman from East Belfast, describes how learning small facts about a place she thought she knew completely changed how she viewed both the Irish language and the divide between our people. It didn't threaten her politics or culture, and signs in Irish won't threaten yours. It simply allows for people to see, learn and appreciate something that's already there. It's ironic that universities exist precisely to challenge assumptions through knowledge. Every student in this room has already accepted that their beliefs may be questioned in the pursuit of learning. So if we are able to tolerate if we are unable to tolerate a cultural element that has and should be used to build bridges, then what hope does anybody else have? Gurmeen Margov.
Thank you, Conleth, for that very fine speech. And now to open the case for the opposition, I'd like to invite Ollie to the podium, please.
Ignore the fact I spilled my water. Mr. President, members of the House, the motion tonight asks us to reinstate the Irish language signage at Queen's. This motion asks us to betray the rulings of the Fair Employment Commission and of our own student body. So we must examine first the context of Irish signage, and moreover its utility on this campus. So let's be honest about what this motion actually is. This is not a neutral motion about linguistics or accessibility. This is about symbolism, politics, and whether a British university should be used as a platform for them. The Irish language in Northern Ireland has no doubt been deliberately politicised by a pan-Republican front, and pretending otherwise insults everyone in this room. Irish is not controversial by nature. Languages aren't born political, they're made political. And in Northern Ireland, Irish has been consistently framed by modern Republicans not as a shared cultural heritage, but as a political marker of identity, of territory, and of a constitutional ambition. Street signs, buildings, public space, all turned into symbols of our own tribalism. This place belongs to us now. So when the proposition tonight say, it's just cultural, it's just language, I respond, maybe elsewhere, but not here. The context matters. And in this context, Irish language signage is not neutral. It has been weaponised in a broader sectarian, cultural and constitutional campaign. No thank you. Whether the proposition are comfortable admitting that or not. This university is supposed to be a shared neutral space. Reinstating Irish signage does not lower the present tensions on this campus, but instead imports them. Further, bilingual signage does not revive a language. We are told by the proposition that signage will promote and normalise Irish, but the evidence simply does not support that claim.
On this,
Yeah?
why is English neutral?
What I'm saying is English is the working language of this university. I'm saying in the context of the modern day, it is neutral. Maybe in 1997 we would re-examine that context, but it's if we should reinstate it today. So let's look at Scotland. Gaelic signage is everywhere. Airports, roads, public buildings. And yet the number of fluent Scot-Gaelic speakers continues to decline. Why? Because languages are revived through education, intergenerational use and community, not by putting a second line of text on a wall that most people can't even read. No one has ever become fluent in a language because they saw library written twice. If the performative proposition genuinely cared about the Irish language, signage is the least effective preservation method available. No thank you. It is visibility without vitality, optics without outcomes. It's going on a run without posting my Strava stats after. And reinstating Irish signage is nothing more than some woke feel-good gesture that allows this institution to say they've done enough.
On that point.
No thanks. All while avoiding the hard, long-term work of language revival or the fact they give all my tuition to the Clintons. So let's call Irish signage what it is, symbolic and not practical. At the end of the day, whether the proposition accepted or not, Queen's University Belfast is a British university, and hence has a duty to remain institutionally neutral.
On that one?
No. Queen's operates within the United Kingdom. It is funded by the British state, and to my knowledge is named after Queen Victoria, not Queen Meallain MacDonald. Our working language is English. The shared language of this campus and of this country is English. And at its fundamentals, signage exists to serve a functional purpose. Safety, clarity, navigation. It is not there to make a cultural statement. Once this university begins embedding symbolic language choice in its infrastructure, it stops being neutral and starts taking sides. No. And once that happens, we open a door that cannot be closed.
As we've heard, if Irish Sign Language is reinstated, what is the justification for them also refusing Ulster Scots, or even other Irish dialects? Either everything becomes multilingual at a great cost and confusion, or we selectively privilege one tradition over another. Both outcomes are divisive, and both outcomes are outwardly sectarian. At a time when there are students at this university who cannot even afford to make it to campus, it is frankly absurd that this House is being asked to prioritise signage over student support. And I'll make it clear, my opposition tonight is not anti-Irish language. Speak it, learn it, celebrate it, join the Irish Society, take a module in Irish, but do not forcibly institutionalise a politicised symbol in a space that should belong to everyone. This university should be a place of education, not demonstration, of shared purpose, not virtue signalling.
On that point, go ahead. You say it's a place not of demonstration, but do you remember the Clinton demonstration? Queen's has a long history of demonstration.
I don't see how that's... I'm saying we shouldn't be demonstrating. It's a place for education, not, pointless cultural protest. The proposition, much like the parties some of them represent, wants us to forget the past, ignore the details, and applaud their optics. This university deserves educations, not symbols. Tonight, reject the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ollie, for that very fine speech. And now, second on the proposition, I'd like to invite Mark to the podium, please.
Before I start this, I've already used up my 1 square that I allocated myself. This is going to be a slog. Fáilte McCarthy, Oxmo Night. That was a sound universally known and hated by all students who have studied the Irish Eaton cert. And it probably set off PTSD in a couple of years. I am one of the very few people who use Irish commonly in life, working in a guild. I use it to communicate to my bosses and my co-workers. So I am absolutely an advocate for all wishing to take it up and learn it. Today I stand before you not to preach about politics and divides, but on the topic of preservation and the right for any language to thrive, prosper, and be understood. Languages are like any other part of history, an important part of understanding cultures and the peoples. Yearly, anywhere from 9 to 25 margin languages go extinct. Gaeilge is one of the few languages that was on the verge of this. Thanks to the mandate of the language in schools down south, the situation has improved a tiny bit. However, I will not get into how bad that system is. Come to me elaborate if you want that. But as I said, it's a marginal improvement. There's still a long way we can do to help preserve this language. Today we're here to talk about one of the few things we can do in our own university, signage. Signage has been a common way to encourage learning of a language. For example, the dual signage down south, Welsh signage, and the promotion of the Basque language in Spain. The EU itself has promoted dual signage. It is an effective way of learning languages and slowly assists the learning of these. I myself was studying German for my Leaving Cert exam, put post-it notes on almost everything in my house. My parents thought it was insane. But it helped. It helped me improve my vocab, and it helped me clutch up that 1H3 in a comeback more legendary than Troy Parrott's performance. Especially as someone who almost failed my mock. So why couldn't we apply these ideas for a university to help the revival of an endangered language? As the Irish saying goes, too smart, Latin paper. A good start is half of the work. These signs would certainly be an excellent start to the preserving of the Irish language. Now, I'm aware of what my opposition has said. If we add Irish signage, why stop there? At that point, we have to add more. To that I say, why not? I'm 100% in support of other languages. No thanks. Such as Scots Gaelic. While I may not be the greatest at it, I wholeheartedly enjoy learning other languages and the cultures associated with them. And considering the number of students enrolled in various Queen's language courses, especially the Irish ones, I get the feeling I'm not the only one. As was mentioned, as will probably be mentioned actually, is the economy and cost of this proposed signage. However, the installation of the signage does not need to be a single, wide-swept change. We could simply replace the signs as part of the regular maintenance and upkeep of the university's facilities. Similarly, if this is not feasible... Go on.
The doors in the library have been broken since before Christmas. What regular maintenance and upkeep does Queen's do?
That's a very valid point, who knows? However, if this is not possible, the doors, why don't we just focus on specific areas where it would be feasible and important? The Lynam building or the Union, for example, before looking at more low-key areas like the library that no one goes to. Additionally, the university can investigate having these retrofits partly funded by the Arts Council of Northern Ireland, who is responsible for cultural funding in the area. There's also a saying in Irish, Tirgan Tonga, Tirgan Anna. A country without a language is a country without a soul. A card, Kaifmid, Gawthor the Thaw a Yenov, Martha Archonga and Whale Folks. Marjaran Shannon Phil Burla, but A and Ye and Thomas Farr can puzzle. I'll say it is A and you on Thomas Farr, on Dara Thomas Farr. As the saying goes, yesterday was the best time to start, but today is the second best time. Today is the best time for us to start supporting marginalised and minority language. But we don't just have to stop at Irish. There are a whole host of these other endangered languages that we could be promoting and supporting. I'd like to thank you all. Slán for the culture.
Thank you, Mark, for that very kind speech. And now, second on the opposition, I would like to invite Jay to the podium.
Today I rise to speak in opposition against this motion, as I have seen firsthand the issues and controversies that arise from bilingual signage across this province, specifically in my dear home, Mid-Ulster. I have seen the politicisation of Irish language, specifically signage, in Mid-Ulster, being used to electioneer and demarcate. One of the most egregious attempts involved a nationalist councillor raising an issue about a council worker who was supposedly threatened by members of the public in a unionist housing area. Yet this was never proven. What was the council worker doing? They were trying to erect the bilingual council signage in an area which was not surveyed. Obviously the council did not comment on this issue, as they don't comment on personal issues involving its staff, but a councillor saw fit, nonetheless, to attempt to smear a working class loyalist housing estate by raising this matter in a council meeting to ensure it was reported in the local media. And they made very sure to name the estate and where it's from, which typically has a very poor name due to being deprived. This was a clear example of politicisation by some, and I fear similar circumstances would arise on this campus. I also feel this would be a physical manifestation of how Queen's can be perceived as a cold house for many students here. I have heard it said you cannot eat a flag, but you also cannot eat an Irish language sign. Surely the issues affecting students, like the cost of living, is something more important. I have engaged with Queen's University Belfast administration on a number of times on the topic of signage on this campus, and they have consistently expressed that their policy is to work towards digital signage, to include all languages. And I'll be honest, I don't actually know what that means, and they refuse to expand on it, but that's seemingly their policy. Their main justification is that Queen's University Belfast is an international campus and must cater for all minority languages, not just one. I feel it would be short-sighted for us to create a hierarchy of languages on this campus, which we would be doing if we were to support this. The Students' Union, the place where the Irish language signs were originally erected in, currently recognises a policy solely for the Irish language, but not for Ulster Scots. And I can say that I have attempted to bring a motion forward and amend the policy on 2 separate occasions, But progress has been slow, and I would probably say it hasn't even started yet. The union has yet to catch up with the appointment of the commissioners and stopped in the middle of processing to gain evidence from students and from wider bodies on how to create a policy that includes Ulster Scots. So, go ahead.
So you would rather have neither language than only one of them?
In what way? Sorry. So sorry. I'm not supporting anything like that, but I'm just saying that the union doesn't have a policy for both languages, yet it claims that it only has a policy for one language, and yet it claims that it should represent everybody. And currently enacts and supports a policy for one language over the other, which shouldn't be the case. It should represent both, if it really is a union for all. A survey conducted by Lucid Talk Polling last year suggested that unionists and Protestants are less likely to move somewhere if the Irish language signage is erected. Would this also be true for Queens if such a policy were introduced? And history shows that is true. As it was often said, unionist students felt discouraged from taking part in the student union way of life. And is it worth making the same mistake again for a cultural passion project? If we are to push for anything, it should be ensuring that this university is genuinely inclusive. We should not pursue tokenistic or purely symbolic gestures that play well in the media and newspapers, but instead focus on tangible actions that benefit all students. Why bring a divisive discussion over signage into a place of learning when we have seen the issues that have surrounded this topic elsewhere? Why pretend that the politicisation of this issue and the resulting chill factor for unionists are non-existent or invalid? Simply brushing off those who oppose this as simply being ignorant or anything else is in itself ignorant. And I'll end on this. Language should be advanced by education and choice, not by force of will. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay, for that very fine speech. And now forward on the proposition, I'd like to invite Kwame to the podium, please.
Chergon, Chonga, Chergonom. A country without a language, a country without a soul. These were the words of Patrick Pearse, a leader in the 1916 Easter Rising. So, obviously I'm not Irish, right? But I understand the anxieties of losing your culture. In my home island of St. Lucia, we have Creole Saint Lucie, St. Lucian Creole, a mixture of French, West African, Amerindian, and of course English. When I was younger, I would scoff at learning it. I thought, why should I? What use is it to me? It was only a few years after my grandmother passed that I came to the realization, after my mother and her siblings passed, there will be no longer any Creole speakers in our family. This is why I see the necessity of supporting this motion. The people of Era want to preserve that connection with their past. Chain links forged from 800 years of hardship, whose consequences are still palpable from here to Donegal. This isn't politics. This is a simple act of fanning the embers so that there's a flame for the next generation to carry forward. In a world of globalization in constant flux, and English as the lingua franca, where every city, every suburb is becoming a carbon copy, a small gesture of a sign with admittedly hard to pronounce words can give you a sense of being somewhere special with its own sense of history and self-assurance. Now, some will balk at the expense of changing hundreds of signs, but such a small accommodation pale in comparison to the massive efforts undertaken in the south of the island, where Gualga is given as much educational reverence as Burla. Still, can you really put a price on heritage? As I think back to my grandmother, my heart pangs with regret that I shunned such a precious inheritance. My ancestors mother tongue unique to my homeland. Ladies and gentlemen, don't make my mistake. Treasure your language, even in the most minute of ways. From St. Lucia to Ireland, I say to you, in my language, Langage c'est chech pays. Language is the heart of a country. Thank you.
Thank you, Kwame, for that very fine speech. I'd now like to invite third and the opposition, Harry, to the podium, please.
Diadech, agus grama agate a uchtrin agus a carje. Taman kikon and ron shiu, Marika compared nairn, Ishme agus skuld aran a skull. Or an Ulster Scots. Hello and thank ye, Mr. President and friends. I'm still. You see, this is the thing. I will bring this up. People don't take it seriously. Again, this motion. For by Irish signage will be the means of excluding folk and dividing university. So, how many of you here speak Irish? Put a show of hands fluently. There, you folk. Who folk? How many people feel uncomfortable with Irish being spoken in campus? There we are. And how many people don't take Ulster Scots seriously? Which I'm going to say a lot of folk. Danny. So, why is this? Why do people feel uncomfortable with Irish? Irish is politicised, alright? It was the Presbyterians, Ulster Scot people like myself, who preserved the language during the 1798 Irish Rebellion. Yet, we have been excluded as a result of the Gaelic revival. We have the Republican Brotherhood and the GAA promoting this idea where we are not Irish. I am Irish and proud. I am an Irish unionist, yet I am excluded from my Irish language. And also, how do I feel excluded as well? It's being politically mobilised as a goal to reunify Ireland. Why can't I speak Irish yet still remain under the crown? Because you've got people in Sinn Féin saying, Sinn Féin IRA, saying that every word of Irish spoken is a bullet against the British establishment.
On that point?
Absolutely not. Yes.
It's actually about that.
Fair enough.
How can you say that people of say the Protestant denominations have been excluded when the first president of Ireland himself was American?
Continue.
He was an American.
Anglican.
Yeah, but that's well and good. First president. Who was the first president again? My history is bad. I'll just keep on going. My brain's fuddled. Yeah, so the Presbyterians are protected. So, it's our language. Irish and Ulster Scots and English is our language in this union, yet we are excluded because of political mobilisation. Ulster Scots. Ulster Scot is a tongue that is sitting heel and Meallain hurts him on Northampton. Yet it is made a geek one and taken seriously, like by Republicans and by high-flipping prods. Even Protestants in my community won't even take Ulster Scots seriously. It's not taken seriously. My community are discriminated. We're seen as backwards people. We're seen as hillbillies. You know what? I'll take the title as being a hillbilly with pride. It means you're from the hills and you believe in King Billy. You know, I'm proud of that heritage. Hillbilly elegy. And you know what? Sinn Féin don't take my community seriously. Sinn Féin IRA, like MLA Gilder News saying the Ulster Scots is simply used to undermine Irish. What a joke, what a disgrace. I'm a proud hillbilly, alright? There is an issue with both languages. Nobody takes it seriously. It's heavily politicised. It's divisive. There's two solutions. Solely speaking English on campus or a trilingual language. Trilingual language, Irish, English, Ulster Scots, all hands in hand together. So there are 12 ways a day in it. Keeping the signing in English alone, or put the signage in 3 tongues. To embellish and kun and nere and homer na geneel een berle avond na comparat archos sels na tre genga. Basically all that, yeah. What unites us in the British Isles is we have all these subcultures, yet we unite under, well, not this flag, but the flag of the crown, the Union flag. We have St. Patrick's Saltire on it. St. Patrick's Saltire, we have the St. George's Cross, and it highlights that we have subcultures under the crown. You can speak Irish under the crown, you can speak English under the crown, but what unites us all is you can be Gaelic, you can be Welsh, you can be Irish, yet we all speak English. It's fantastic. This flag highlights unity. Maybe not so much this, but the Union flag most definitely. I just thought, why not? It's a prop, and you can see where I was all at recently with my trip, so why not? So, Irish English speakers, great Irish literary heroes like James Joyce, you have Seamus Heaney, Oscar Wilde. We shouldn't exclude the fact that they were pioneers of the English language. Great Irish people on this island speaking English for every realm's delight. It's for everyone. Irish not so much. Think of kneecap. Gosh almighty, they exclude my community. They're speaking Irish, they were filming down my street, a unionist stronghold. What a disgrace. Imagine a unionist version of ECAB going down the Falls Road. I don't think that would end very well. So, yes, who speaks Irish? Few folk here. Ulster Scots? Maybe. There she is. It's not standardised. See, I think there's more inequality with Ulster Scots than there is with Irish. Everyone's making a big deal about putting up Irish signage, but where is the Ulster Scots legitimacy? We don't even have language learning for Ulster Scots, whereas Irish does in this campus. Someone take it. Yeah, go on ahead.
Do you not think allowing for Irish signage would pave the way, a precedent to allow for Ulster Scots signage?
But I think it can be done in both ways, in hand, but clearly Irish has been politically mobilised, so people will be uncomfortable with that on campus. I see I'm stirring a lot of folk up here, but who cares? Who cares? Let's celebrate our native heritage in Ulster and Ireland all together. We should celebrate being Ulster Scots. I should celebrate being Irish. You know, from Seamus Heaney, Meallain, Donville, Willie Dren, and all these fantastic people. Irish is what makes Northern Ireland Northern Ireland. English is what makes Northern Ireland Northern Ireland. Ulster Scots is what makes Northern Ireland Northern Ireland. I'm a proud Irish unionist. And I love to see its promotion. I'd love to see the promotion of Irish without its politicisation alongside Ulster Scots. I'm going to bring up, I need to take a breath, gosh. Case study time, I was in Moldova in December, and Romanian has been politicised just as Irish has in Moldova. And it's a terrible thing because the majority of people, when I was in Chisinau, speak Russian, 80% of them. And yet all civic street signs are in Romanian, which they're just forced to learn Romanian. That's clearly politicised by the civic state under President Sandu, the PAS, because basically she's wanting to make moves to integrate Moldova into Greater Bessarabia and Romania. So the first step they're doing is trying to join the EU. I recommend you watch the Rest is Politics podcast because they're all about that. So I'm going to bring in another language. La Lublu Ludi Moldavski. I love the people of Moldova. That's it in Russian. Con krok akar an afar agus tafich and matter to fetch the matter to a close. To conclude in the matter, Irish already has legitimacy in Queen's University Belfast, unlike Ulster Scots. Where's the equality? Putting up Irish signage is nothing else but promotes throwing to the back to folk like myself. We had to their own heritage. You didn't get the same fair calling as Irish, or it being misguidedly earned by Sinn Féin IRA. Thank you, friends. Agus Gurama Agats. Thank you.
Thank you, Harry, for that very fine speech. And now to co-support the proposition, I would like to invite Eoin to the podium.
Irishmen and Irish women, in the name of God and of the dead generations from which she receives her old tradition of nationhood, Ireland through us summons her children to our flag and strikes for her freedom. Mr. President, or should I say, Uachtaran Deveni, members of the Council and my fellow members of the Society, Akaja, my friends. As the uncrowned King of Ireland, Charles Stuart Parnell once said, "No man has the right to fix the boundary of the march of a nation, even if he did not respect the march of the nation." That was the wrong quote. The boundaries of the O'Shea marriage. The members of the opposition, the Pan-Unionist Front, comprising seemingly of the Ulster Unionist Party, the Social Democratic Party, and the Social Democrats, have been attempting to downplay the need for Irish signage in Belfast's premier, and let's be real, only university. It is no secret that we are here today on the island of Ireland, Jack. I am so sorry. We may be a small country, but we're a great one too. The country of Seamus Heaney, Catherine Conley, Fontaine's DC, Liam Neeson, his Twitter account, Troy Barrett's right foot, my parents left would come to that. The idea of Ireland, despite this rhetoric, because I'm just looking for a bit of fun here, is not political. An Irishman can vote against unification without diluting his own nationality. And being Irish can be expressed in so many different ways, especially from people from mixed backgrounds, like myself. Many choose to do so through the language. And the Irish language hasn't gone away, you know. However,
on that point,
no. However, if you live in this country and you see Irish culture, if you see text in the Irish language, I have 8 words for you. What the hell are you doing in my country? Some members of the opposition have pointed to the cost of putting up signage, which is to be expected from a society that seemingly can't afford a proper lectern. But let's be real. Is anyone here actually enrolled in the School of Arts, English and Languages? I was about to say that I asked, but I actually did. However, the pan-unionist, actually, this is a joke I had to cut because you defected. So, the pan-unionist front is not as savvy as it may think. Insert joke I cannot use. Partition. Invented, pushed and defended by unionists for over a century has cost the Irish and British exchequers billions upon billions every year due to the messy framework caused by the fact that we are half in, half out, Sunningdale, Belfast Agreement, etc., etc.
Point of information.
I am not taking POIs from you, my friend.
I'm going to keep getting.
Quiet down. You threw out my train of thought there, boy. Brexit, wholeheartedly supported by unionism during the 2016 referendum, has cost hundreds of billions in total. And let's not forget about the £500 million hole caused by the RHI scandal. Thank you, Ollie. I will not be deterred from speaking truth to power, and I believe this is the point which may get my membership suspended. These people cover their bigotry through their political parties' quote, claimed fiscal responsibility. Fiscal responsibility that has no shred of credibility, evidence, or substance. Just blind bigotry, it can't, so blind it cannot see itself.
On that point?
No. Now, while we bicker over this, and I probably inflame the tension in the room several fold, we all know, as previous proposition speakers have said, culture. Oh, I'm running out of time. Culture is slowly across the world being diluted. This is actually a serious one. Culture across the world is being diluted. We are slowly becoming part of one globalized culture. Unfortunately, taking the structure of the world's worst culture and nation imaginable, the United States of America. We all recognize this. We see this every day. The exportation of these Americanisms, the fact it takes 10 years to create 5 seasons of television in Stranger Things, and none of them were even any good. We all recognize this also. We have more things in common with a person our age in Boston than our parents ever did with anyone of their age in Boston. Culture, now more than ever, must be protected. When our parents were our age, as my friend said, that was connected to another point, apologies. But I do recognise the talk of Ulster Scots here, and I will point out that virtually all of us said we had no issue with Ulster Scots and would love to see Ulster Scots signage, etc., Royal Swords, etc. I'm not taking POIs and I'm running out of time, no. We must undo this trend of the destruction of native languages and culture. Like in Scotland, Wales, Cornwall, I could go on and on, but the AI gave me those months. Culture must be protected. We love culture. It's why some members constantly talk about their hate of the French and talk of Waterloo, Trafalgar, Agincourt. It's for connection. To my friends across the divide, this is why we want Irish signage. It is not provocative, even though my speech may be a bit provocative, oh my God. We are simply trying to do what you've been entitled to do every day in every generation. Looking back to the proclamation very quickly, it says in regards to our sovereignty, the long usurpation of that right by a foreign people and government has not extinguished the right, nor can it ever be extinguished except with the destruction of the Irish people. For too long, we have teetered on the edge of extinguishment and extinction. To that I say, no more, our day will come. I cannot read the speech in the sunglasses though. Signage does hurt no one. It does not seek to exclude. In fact, this is an inclusionary proposal. Inclusionary, we could be potentially saying inclusions for people who would want to see English signage, Irish signage, Ulster Scots signage, even though this debate was never about Ulster Scots, we just brought it into it, guys, come on! But we are not in a apologies. We're not in a neutral state here. This is not a new debate. This is a debate that's ongoing. Blah 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 blah. We stand to defend one thing, one principle, universal among all nations. C-A-R-T-I. Commend my comments to the House and urge you to pass the motion. So what a room, mate.
Fine speech. Now to close the case for the opposition and the debate as a whole, I would like to invite Beth to the podium.
Okay. Dia a charja, tá ahrazam ar live goilum Conleth I gwynia an ruinsha. Now lads, it's great to be here. A lot of you may be confused why I'm speaking on this side of the motion. I know it's not because someone dropped out and no one else would speak on this motion. It is because I'm passionately against the Irish language signage. And now you may ask why. Why, Beth? It's because of one thing. I'm a true South dub. And there's one thing more important than Irish language signage. It's money. Now, when Conleth said that Queen's is going backwards, he was right, because I'm once again the only woman speaking on a debate. But he was not right about the cost that was involved. Let me tell you a little story. It's Tuesday. I've woken up late and I'm running to the library to finish an assignment that's due that day. I walk to the library. Yet again, only one of our 4 doors works. The library's also on fire, so I can't get in. If anyone knows what happens that day, I don't know. I go to the SU, stressed, because once again, my assignment is not done. I try and walk to the SU. Guess what? Only one of those doors works. And it's the one that rotates. And I refuse to walk through them ever since I walked the wrong way through it. I tried to force my way through as 4 girls stared at me the entire time. And then, later on the day, my assignment, thank the Lord, done. Not well, but done. I go to Junction, where I'm always at, and I try and get through the door. Once again, the door is broken. And this, I think, highlights the issue with Irish language signage, because a lot of things in Queen's don't work. I did my assignment for a lab, right? We do a lab, it's about forces and whatnot. Sorry, Eoin, STEM students unite. You can't make jokes about it. And it's about measuring forces, right? And you have a machine and you have a dial. And guess what? The machine was broken. There's so much in Queen's that does not work, and money that can go to such better places. The opportunity cost involved of Irish language signage compared to literally anything else in this university would be really great. Now, also secondly, Ella didn't want me to say this, but also, I, as a true South dub, do not speak whatever Ulster Irish exists up here. So it would not be useful for me, because I wouldn't speak that. It's not real Irish. I couldn't speak that language. And now, with the opportunity cost, if it's between this and, say, the cheap pints in the SU, that's SU all the way. I would be forced to develop a real personality if not. And now I do think I'm going to knife my teammates. I'm so sorry, guys. I don't really care. I don't think it's a very political issue. And I think we shouldn't really politicize it. It's just not that serious. I think we just have better things to be doing on our day. And it's important to keep the debate within the confines of Queen's University Belfast, because it wouldn't be an issue in Ulster University, because they just can't read the English language signage either. And if you've ever been there, it's just pictures of things. Issue, it reflects of who we should be listening to, not people who are trying to politicize in the outside world, not other people who have never been to Queen's. We should keep it to the biggest stakeholders in this debate, which is the students at Queen's, because they're the ones who are going to have to shoulder this cost. We have all these ideas of other initiatives paying for them, which gets me into the Shared Ireland initiative. But yes, Jonathan.
Do you think that Queen spends its money on students anyway, or do you think it spends it all on the Clintons and hosting in the US? That's where the money's coming from, not the student budget, the goals will be broken anyway.
Bit of column A, bit of column B, but I disagree with you on that one. I believe it comes from the students, and for the purpose of the debate, that is fact. But when fees are already being threatened to be increasing, when people are already struggling with the increasing costs of apartments, like I'm apartment renting at the moment, and like why are Holy Land's apartments £2,000 a month? Like that is actually diabolical. For me to die of black mold, 3 months moving in, it can't be done. With the doors not working and other increasing costs that I don't know about. But I think in a serious issue, it should be taken, the cost should be more seriously considered when we're discussing Irish language signage. And then the Shared Ireland Initiative, because it was said that Ireland, the South, doesn't like fund Queens. It does actually give a lot of money to Queens. And we can't be giving any more to the North, because that's money that could go give Dublin yet another train, or promise Nicholl a train and not deliver.
You know why?
Yes.
They were underwater. It wouldn't help anyway.
Oh yeah, but someone needs to get out of water. And now, oh yeah, and also take offense to someone talking about the cost of the society, like as my job to get money. This is the cutest little stand you could get. And then we talked about the cost, but let me bring into another bigger issue. With bilingual signage, what do we look like? We look like a Southern university. We look like UCD. And that truly cannot be something. Do you want Luke Coyle to walk down talking about getting high nose with the lads before his rugby match? Absolutely not. And I think for one of these reasons, this a very important reason, we should stand against it. Do you want, okay, a really nice debating chamber, but really useless people running it, compared to our slightly less useless people running it? I'm included, guys, don't worry. But the last point I want to make, which it may not be the Irish culture debate, but it's performative Irishness. Now, you may know my claddagh ring, unfortunately, and my cute little scarf, courtesy by EJ. And you may be like, oh, but you are Irish. It's like, yeah, but I perform Irish. I don't actually care about a thing. When people will tell you about the importance of Irish language signage, they're like, I speak Irish. Saying Gara Margaret according to the end of your speech does not make you an advocate for the Irish language, when those are, as Eoin O'Neill said himself, were the only words you could say in the Irish language. When there are Gaelgoers on this campus who don't really care, compared to people who are just doing it for the brownie points. When they're walking around in their Fontaine's DC jerseys, telling you how much they care about Irish football, despite never watching a game and only reading the Premier League, you kind of have to question what's the significance of it. And they seem to focus their inadequacy of seemingly not being able to open up an Irish book and learn the language, but to focus on the Irish language signage, giving themselves fake brownie points to bake it. But that's too serious, lads. Back to the real issue. The doors in Queens do not work. And I would like to be able to enter the Morty without that little side door and not have out of time, and not have to keep embarrassing myself with not understanding how those rotating doors in the SU work. I thank you for listening, and I beg you to oppose.
Thank you, Beth, for that very fine speech, and thank you to all of our speakers. I believe we had 3 main speakers on this debate, so I think a round of applause is due them. But you're not out of the woods and off to woodworkers yet, as we now have our time for questions. So this is your chance as members of the House to ask questions addressed to the proposition or the opposition. Perhaps it's a point that you would like them to expand upon, or something that you felt they did not cover during the debate. So, do we have any questions for the proposition first, please?
Yes, right. Yes, so I will preface this by saying that my grandma was from Donegal and used to speak Irish to me when I was younger, so I've got no prejudice against the Irish language. But I guess some of the points that were made on the proposition, particularly last week's report, particularly the very inflammatory speech, don't seem to recognise that there's a very specific context in Northern Ireland. We are a post-conflict society in which symbolism has become incredibly important, and symbols that would be completely fine in England if you have an Irish flag outside a club. That doesn't denote any political connotation of it. Similarly, Irish is political in Northern Ireland. There is a certain section of the community who are already more likely to go to GB for university. There's a brain drain of Protestant students going to GB. They already think that Queen's is a bit of a cold house. Would not Irish be a demarcator of territory and signal to those people that it's an institution that's not for them? Whether that's right or wrong, that is the fact of living in a post-conflict society, and I don't think the proposition really engaged or addressed that key context issue.
Thank you. Would someone from the proposition care to respond?
I might from that. What do you do then with Irish is politicised? We'll not put it up. The end. What do you do with it? What I tried to raise is the only way to get around that is to normalise it. And signs are nothing. Like signs aren't making everyone have to pass a certain level of Irish into the university. They're if you don't want to look at a sign, don't look at it. It's like there has to be some process of normalisation, and I think signage is that entry point.
Thank you, Conleth. Do we have someone from the opposition care to respond to that point?
I just want to say a good start with not politicising the Irish language would be not quoting IRA men and IRA soldiers as well as IRA slogans. I mean, you can't seriously, they're all contradicting each other. You stand up, you say the language isn't political, and then you just quote IRA men. Get your story straight.
Thank you, Ollie. Do we have another question for the proposition? Yes, Matthew?
Yes, very good speaking to get to tonight. Yes, so in terms of it being politicised, you've admitted that it's politicised. Why have there been no effort, seemingly, by nationalists and Republicans to depoliticise the language? We often frequently hear unionists and loyalists being told, oh, but it is your language, you should speak it whether you like it or not, it belongs to you. But there have been no actual concrete efforts to invite any kind of greater speakership by unionists and loyalists. And don't quote Meallain or Eoin because she admitted herself she's a communist. So these are completely irrelevant to someone who met her and spoke to her 2 hours. So why have there been no greater efforts by nationalists and Republicans advocating for the Irish language? We have to look at NECAP. They're a total farce. They're standing up there and they're an inflammatory group. Something about inflammatory, but yes. So why have there been no greater efforts to depoliticise the Irish language by nationalists and Republicans?
Someone from the proposition care to respond?
You said why aren't people doing this, and then said don't give me this answer. By the way, like Linda Irving, why? Just because you disagree with her, she's an excellent example of someone. Yes, she is. Like you have to shake her head.
Go back and forth. I'm afraid.
Just because you think she's a communist, like is irrelevant. We're not talking about communism. We're not talking about communism. In terms of NECAP, like why can't NECAP say what they do? NECAP aren't the head of the Irish language. Is Stormzy suddenly the head of the English language? No.
Thank you, Conleth. Would someone from the opposition care to respond?
Well, I had a very different opinion from my teammates, but I think we should focus on the big issue, which is the cost and the fact that the doors are clean. But I do think freedom of language is a little bit of woke nonsense. But yeah, no. Look, everything will be politicized, you know what I mean? So what can you do about that? It costs too much.
Thank you, Beth. Do we have a question for the opposition, please? I'll go for Ella.
Just on the point of Ulster Scots, as I'm from the Valley in Nicholl, which is where Ulster Scots is one of the most predominantly spoken, like the place where it's spoken the most in the region. We consider it there to be a mix between the two languages, where we have bilingual signage. So we have Irish signage, we have English signage. And Ulster Scots is considered to be a lovely meld and unique to the area, unique to Mid Ulster, which is very close to where I'm from, which also shares Ulster Scots. It's considered that the language actually encompasses both, and also there's some signs that have all three languages. So I don't understand why they're mutually exclusive when you remove, by placing Irish signs up, then means you can't have Ulster Scots. I also would like to point out the fact that there's plenty of symbols on campus that are overtly British and overtly, let's just say, very, very, very political. And I understand people say, well, we can't take them down. But Irish signs aren't necessarily a new thing, they are reinstating, and that's a key part of the motion. If we never had Irish signs here, I would totally understand that why you put them up because it's inherently political. But putting them back I don't know whether that's, to me, I would have no umbrage with someone putting something back that was taken down in the 90s that was overtly British, and the efforts of peace. I wouldn't mind someone putting it back, the same way I wouldn't mind someone putting Irish science back. So just one of those issues. Sorry for being too involved, Daniel.
Thank you. Would someone from the opposition care to respond?
Fair enough, Al. But the motion is about the language. It's a language issue, and it's surrounding a campus issue. Unfortunately, not the legal. So the thing is, I see that Irish has more legitimacy in campus today as Ulster Scots lead. Now, I'll explain that in the fact that you can learn Irish up to a very high standard of level in the QUB Language Act, yet there has been no efforts made by Queen's University Belfast to even standardise Ulster Scots into a way to legitimise its standardisation, and also for folk like myself and many other people from areas like Northants, even folk from Donegal studying and claim to learn and develop Ulster Scots lead, because the issue is Ulster Scots isn't as legitimate as Irish on campus, and Irish, I would say, is a lot more politicised, whereas Ulster Scots is clearly discriminated, as everyone laughed the moment I started speaking it. So there's more discrimination with Ulster Scots than Irish on campus. And yeah, that's that.
Thank you, Harry. Would someone like to rebut from the proposition?
No, I'll just say the serious points here now. The campaign for Irish language rights is a distinct but parallel struggle to the Ulster Scots language rights struggle. A success of the Irish language in attaining new recognition and new rights is not meant in any way by anyone to be some kind of battle. These are two very valiant, very important struggles. So I completely agree with you. Queens need to do better for Ulster Scots, but they need to do a whole lot better for Irish.
Thank you, Eoin. And I'll take one final question for the opposition from Luke.
Am I allowed to speak? Very nice. So the third speaker, and indeed in this whole debate, there's been a real framing problem around kneecap, and I think it actually underlines just how bad faith the opposition has been. Need I remind you that young Spencer was a supporting act for kneecap, who is a Protestant artist who grew up on the Shankill, who actively feels comfortable communicating with these people. What we're seeing right now, maybe, and I'd love for the opposition to maybe tell me this is wrong, is that we are convincing ourselves that there is this nebulous enemy, when actually when people work together and when people incorporate the language, young Spencer feels no need of fear or rebutting, kneecap as an organisation seemingly like a nebulous entity. They work together. I don't understand why we're seeing this constant victim complex when people have been making constant change and making good communication. I don't understand it.
Would someone from the opposition care to respond?
Why would any unionist want to work with kneecap when they wanted to kill an MP? I would like to say that, I think that's that. Yeah.
Thank you, Harry. Would someone from the proposition care to respond to that?
Just on your point, like the comment kneecap made, not every comment anyone ever makes is to be taken completely serious. This, for example, is just for fun. Do you think kneecap wants to? So by that logic, do you think people that would be fans of kneecap? Do you think they believe that kneecap's telling them to kill John Finnegan?
Yes. Yeah.
Very rude. So yeah, that's that.
Thank you, Eoin. And then finally we'll take an abstaining question. So this is a question that's put evenly to both the proposition and the opposition. Don't worry if you ask one that's balanced towards one side or the other, you'll very swiftly find out, because I have quite a hefty gavel and quite good aim. So do we have any abstaining questions? I'll go Henry first and take second.
Yeah, now don't laugh the thing at me, right? Just give me a moment, right? But there's this whole narrative, right, of like language being like political or whatever, and like it was something kind of a common thread through the first three speeches on the opposition. you're your own thing. And then one of the questions that we heard there of like, oh, like language is like a symbol of whatever, and you know, language is this and language is that. Like, it's take a step back from Irish for a second. Language as a concept is so much more fundamental than what a symbol is, right? The motion does not read, oh, let's all put, you know, the harp, or like, you know, putting up the hair on all the signs, or like, you know, the shamrock. Like, that's not what we're advocating for, what, you know, is being discussed tonight, right? It's not a conversation about symbolism, right? Of course, symbols are sensitive in a post-conflict territory, but language is what mothers use to tell their children that they're proud of them. Language is what we use to fight, to reconcile. Language is literally the most fundamental, basic thing that differentiates humans from every other species. And this notion that it's like political, that it's a symbol, and we've heard it on both sides, is really confusing to me. Because the proposition seems to be like to run with it. Like, it's a great bit, I get it, but like, well, except the first speaker, to be fair, but like, what really is confusing me is like, it's not, you know, take a step back and this is just how half of the people, half of the families, half of the generations of this place communicate to each other, talk to each other, speak to each other. And it's you know, it doesn't need to be about fighting, but more so about representation of that very fundamental core element of oneself, you know. So I don't know why neither side kind of spoke of that.
In short, what's your question, Henry?
Why did both sides concede to this thing that language is political and language is a symbol?
Okay, would someone from the proposition care to respond first?
I don't mind responding, I should say. I like Eaton's anonymous, that's why they're safe to be able to say it. The reason maybe that I think we straight into, I tried to frame it as more of a language thing. The reason we moved straight into it, frame it as a political thing, is because the context of signage is different from the fundamental basis of language. I tried to touch on it being about language and it being about, you know, how when we lost all these stories and this sort of inherent knowledge of who we are. So I sort of find this to respond to you, because I completely agree.
Thank you, Conleth. Could someone from the opposition respond, please?
Well, I explicitly said in my speech I am in no way anti-Irish, and I found myself agreeing with the other side that I don't want this to be a political issue. I think it's absolutely disgusting that republicanism has taken it as a token of what it means to be a Republican, but you have to evaluate the context. If this was reinstating Irish signage somewhere else, it's in Queen's University, Belfast. You need to evaluate the context of all the students who go here.
Thank you, Ollie. And we'll take one more from Victor.
Hi, good day, my question relates to the fact that the thing with language is the standardized versions of language, and there's the diamond versions of language. According to my background as being Nigerian and having to deal with over 500 different ethnicities, I do know how very disadvantageous it would be when you promote one standardized version of the language and how it affects the others. And it's something that, you know, it goes way bigger for university environment. Isn't that very, very dangerous, you know, for both sides. And also with the Irish language, so I have I'm definitely not Irish, so I can have much more foundational knowledge about history. But, you know, I've had conversations with people from here, and I've noticed that a lot of people I've spoken to from native from here have this, they don't really know Irish that much, or they can cling to a dialect. And so the work is quite enormous to get people to, you know, that speak in the language as a very, very common way of conversing with each other before, you know, maybe to signage. I don't know, it's just a generalized question to both sides, and I just want to get it on.
Thank you, Victor. Would someone from the opposition care to respond first?
I mean, yeah, actually, this is my speech. Also, Irish is very difficult for a lot of speakers to understand. We should standardize it all to build a in my opinion. I think like there is like a nice thing about Irish is the fact that it's dialects, but it does make it kind of very difficult to choose the amount of Irish speakers that come across the island, and specifically from the north. So that could face an issue as to why we shouldn't have Irish language.
Beth, would someone from the proposition care respond to that?
So the thing about the dialects of Irish, most of the problems with understanding tends to be accents, how they're said. Like Donegal Irish is entirely different spoken compared to Common Irish. But when they're written down, they're actually not that different. There's like minor grammatical differences, but it's absolutely easy to understand in differences because you have like earls or chivs, some of swap and Ulster Irish. It's a whole thing, but it is not that different. And your comment on Dublin Irish, get that out of here. Never in my life do I want to hear that again.
Thank you, Mark. And that brings us on to our vote on speakerability. So this is not your own held opinion on the motion. This is which side you thought spoke best based on the metrics of presentation, rhetoric, argument, teamwork and engagement. So can I have all those who'd like to vote for the proposition and vote on speakerability to raise your hands now, please.
Bravo.
31. Yep. And can I have all those who'd like to vote for the opposition on the vote on speakerability to raise their hands now, please. Yes. And finally, can I have all those who'd like to abstain from the vote on speakerability to raise their hands now, please. Yes. Mr. Secretary, can I have results from the vote on speakerability, please?
Yes, with 31 votes for the proposition, 11 votes for the opposition and 20 abstentions, the proposition carries and the motion passes.
Yes, what a debate it was tonight. It reminded me, I'm quite interested in the formation of words in the history of language. For instance, I've been looking at Greek recently, and the word pteron, which means wing. A lot of people think that helicopter is split heli and copter, when actually it's helico and ter from pteron, which means spiral wing. And for instance, a lot of people think pterodactyl is split into ter, o, and dactyl. In fact, it is ter and odactyl, which means wing fingers. Now, calorific was founded, it does. Calorific was founded in 1850, and the reason we're called the Literary Scientific Society is because our members originally would have watched science experiments becoming conducted and would have read literary works, and thus, from our nickname, we got the liter from literary and the ific from scientific to become the lirific. However, I would like to propose an alternative definition, that in fact, the word is comprised of lit and terrific, because that is indeed what our society is. And to show how lit and terrific our society is, you'll notice we've got those term cards there with the QR codes on them. I'd implore you to scan them to become a part of our very strong community and to highlight some of the exciting social events and debates that we've got coming up. I would now like to open the floor to council announcements. So, council, do we have any announcements? Yes, Mr. External Convener.
Hi everyone, I'm Henry for some of the new cases this evening, just on a couple of competition and external things. So, what I'm responsible for is overseeing all kind of competitive and external activities within the society. But I am pleased to say that after many a year in rest, the Queen's IV will be bouncing back with a bang. So we will have an international InterVarsity debating competition happening right here in Queen's, and it's going to be of quite large scale. And we will be sending 8 teams from QUB to this competition. Now, about half of those spots have already filled up since I put in the group chat at the start of this debate. But if you are interested, please go to the group chat, go to the WhatsApp link and fill out that form fast. because we really want to see novice speakers. We want to see debaters who just started out and you know, tear into actual competitive debating, because there's so much potential here. And really, you regret what you don't do, not what you do. As I always say when I'm gassing people to go to Dublin and sleep on floors. And on that note, I'd just like to send the best of luck and to thank you and congratulations to the 4 teams that we're sending to the Trinity IV run by the TCD and Phil and the TCD HIS in Dublin. So this is actually the biggest debate competition that happens on the Irish circuit. So it would be really good to see Queens represented there for the first time in a long while, and a big props to all of those guys. So sign up for the IB, sign up to speak, sign up to compete. If you have any questions at all, the external subcommittee will hunt you down and refer you. And if you have any questions that you want to bring to me, just let me know. Give me a text, find me in my race. Thanks, guys.
As someone who was in Dublin last Friday, I would also like to give credit where credit is due to the amazing performance of Henry and Ella in the Irish Times semi-final. Do we have any other council announcements? Yes, Madam Internal.
Yeah, so well done to everyone tonight. The speeches were amazing, everyone's class. We've also got more maidens this week as well. Maiden count is on the horizon, guys. I will get to my over 50 maiden speakers. If Lawyers Without Borders didn't drop out as much as they would this week, there'd be a big announcement tonight. There was a storm, and people in that society were a bit flakier than I would have liked. But we will soon hit our count of maidens. If you want to be in that total of breaking the record for the amount of maiden speakers, please come to me. The motion we have next week is this house whose men and women can't be friends. I understand it's a lot of people's reading weeks. It's my reading week too. I'm coming back for debate, okay? So guys, especially if you are in Belfast next Thursday and you're not at home for your reading week, come to debate, please. You can come here and then go to Baba. Like, come on, Divas can multitask nowadays. Like, you can do 2 things in one night. So, and also if you're interested in speaking in that debate, please come to me. It should be really, really fun. Also, I have another announcement that I will be hosting my debating workshop on the 18th of February, Wednesday, Ash Wednesday. Again, you can do 2 things at once, get your ashes, like in my workshop. So it will be really, really fun. If you are sitting here and you want to sign up to speak and you're thinking, oh, I'm a bit nervous, I don't really know, come to the workshop first. The workshop will be really fun, really low key. You won't be forced to speak, you can just listen and kind of ask questions, and I'll show clips from speeches beforehand and talk about how it all works. So please come to my workshop, please come to next week's debate, I will come and find you. And if you want to speak, please come to me and ask. And the film, or the form is in the QR code there as well. So please.
Thank you. That reminds me that next week we are very much still active, as we had a collaboration debate this Tuesday with our good friends from Lawyers Without Borders. Next Tuesday I am excited to announce that we will be having another collaboration debate with the PPE Society in the Great Hall at 7 on the motion, "This House believes money is the root of all evil." A very entertaining debate, so I would recommend that you all come along to that. We also have something on next Monday. Mr. Events, would you care to elaborate?
Yes, thank you, Daniel. We have a lip talk with Declan Long. I know you're probably bored of me saying this. He is the writer and producer of Blue Lights, a BBC drama about the PSNI. Then the week after we have Gavin Robinson, the leader of the DUP. That's on Monday the 16th at 6 o'clock. And then the week after we have Daniel Mulhall, the former Irish ambassador to the United Kingdom, US and Germany. We have a few other people lined up to speak, but they're in coming months. We also have a bit of a collaboration with Durham. As I've mentioned previously, they are hosting a debate on the Northern Irish State. This House regrets the creation of the Northern Irish State. That is on March 13th. If you're interested in coming along, please do let me know, or Daniel. Me and Daniel have both booked tickets, so we are definitely going, and a few other members might be coming. So if you're interested, please do let us know, and we can sort of go as a contingent as well. Thank you.
Yes, make sure to join us for those exciting events coming up and that fun excursion to Durham. Madam Treasurer.
Yeah, so 2 little things. One, membership. I see a lot of new faces. It's £5. It's really nice and fun, guys. With our formal coming up, you'll get £5 off, so you know you don't lose out on anything. And it's just generally fun. Keep members of society, yada yada yada. You can pay with cash. To me, please don't. Please go to our fixer and pay online. I really hate having to go to the SU office and give them money. They make it a lot more difficult than I care. And secondly, I have not done this yet, but I will do this tonight, so keep your eyes locked out. There's going to be a membership survey going out, which is all the demographics of the members of the Lillerific. It's going to be anonymous, so like we're not going to do anything with it except for build sponsors and show them that we're normal people and they should give us a lot of money. So if you really like the idea of society having funds to do fun things like a wine reception, which is something we can't afford at the moment, but we'll be afford. If you want cute quarter zips, I can't say the actual word that I want to say, and merch, that will also come with sponsorship. So keep your eyes open onto the WhatsApp there that you can sign up to for free, or the Instagram. Please, for the love of God, fill it out. It makes my life so much easier. And it's anonymous, so there's no hassle for you guys to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Please do keep a follow on our Instagram to keep you posted on the fun events we have coming up. And actually, on the link tree of our Instagram, you can not only become a member of the society and a part of this community, but also you can get some quite nice Lillerific pin badges, which are at the end of the table there. Owen's already bought 2, so jump on the bandwagon and get yourself a lovely Lillerific pin. Do I have any other council announcements, Madam Vice President?
Yes, hello everyone. That was a great debate. For all the maidens and speakers, I give feedback. If you want feedback at the end of the debate after we are done taking our picture. And I just want to reiterate what Beth said about membership. We will have our first women's subcommittee debate coming up. That is on the 17th of February, which is a Tuesday. And big announcement, not big announcement, but you have to be a paid up member if you attend. You have to. That's just how it works for us. Yeah. But anyways, just buy your membership if you haven't already.
Thank you, Ray. Yes. Of course, we are not just a debating society, we are very much a social society. We don't all go our separate ways after our debates, but the fun continues. And to elaborate on this, I'd like to invite Mr. Social Officer to expand.
Crazy elaboration. We're going to elaborate again. But if you could keep your eyes on the socials, because I'm waiting with bated breath for the bot to confirm our drunk debates, which is supposed to be a Valentine's one, but I'm not sure whether they're going to confirm it next year. So if you're really stuck and lonely, you can drink with us. Also, please watch forward date for Competence Uni. Colleagues and I met with the catering team at the URC earlier, and we've picked your menu, and we've also picked desserts. And there's a lot of talk about creme brulee. Anyone who was here for my debate a few weeks ago will know how passionate I am for that. But that will be on either the 23rd or the 30th. I just need to check with Daniel so he can have a think about that now. But we provisionally booked of March. We provisionally booked both dates, so we might even have 2. And final thing, if I'm permitted to mention the Great Debate. Yeah. So on Tuesday, the 10th of March, we are doing a great debate on the Acts of Union, and the exact motion will be published. There will be guest speakers. It should be 4 guest speakers, 4 students, and hopefully a guest chair, with the anticipation being politicians and the like. So if you're interested, you can let Alan know or let me know. But we would like that to be a big event, so please do come along to that as well. So I think that's everything from me.
I would like to thank you all for coming to the debate, and as always, if I could have speakers to the front, council to stay behind for setup, and I will see the rest of you at libraries. Meeting adjourned.